All right, welcome back to Eugene, where I'm Owen Murray with John Evans here. We're breaking down Oregon's season so far. Now we're going to get into a little bit of a Wisconsin preview, John. This is not a great team that the Ducks are welcoming to Autzen Stadium, right in the bottom of the Big Ten. Just how bad, I guess, is this Wisconsin team?
It's been tough for them. Unfortunately, my younger brother is a Badger. He has been there the last 2 years and has not been too pleased with what he has discovered since becoming a Wisconsin fan. He texted me this weekend. He was ready to just get destroyed by Jeremiah Smith. Turns out it was Carnell Tate who ended up doing the damage to them this past weekend. Um, Wisconsin has their offense has really struggled. The biggest thing that my brother continues to tell me is that he's so mad that they continue to want to run an air raid scheme when they're a team that has for so long, when they were good under guys like Brett Bielema, and we're consistently that team that was coming out of the weaker half of the Big Ten. We're a power team playing strong defense. I think their defense honestly is not as bad as it would really seem. And I think the fact that you come out of these games, you're only giving up 34 to Ohio State and 38 to Alabama, and it's not 45, 50-point blowouts. I think that's honestly not as bad as you'd expect. I mean, a 37-point loss to Iowa doesn't look great when you consider it's Iowa and what they do offensively normally. But yeah, this team is tough. So it's I think this is, when you look at the rest of Oregon's their schedule the rest of the way, this is the game that stands out to me as the biggest blowout the rest of the way, especially when you consider it's going to be at home. Pretty good atmosphere for that Grateful Dead game this weekend, hopefully.
Absolutely. I mean, and so I went to go pull some stats for the run for a daily download article I'm putting together. And they're actually pretty okay against the run. I want to say it's something like 14th nationally in defense against the run. They're allowing like 3.2-ish yards per carry. But they're allowing 8.2 yards per pass, and that just it's one of those situations where you don't have to do too well in the running game against them just because they're so susceptible on the back end. When you start looking at what does success look like in this game here, is it just, I don't want to necessarily say this is rinse and repeat of Rutgers, because the context to that was a little bit different, and that you're coming off a loss. Like, is there stuff you still want to see take another step after that Rutgers game, or is this just like, hey, let's get another blowout, keep it going?
Like you mentioned with the run game, Wisconsin has done that pretty well. And you think about Wisconsin football, that's generally something they do pretty well. They have guys who come out on their defensive line who are NFL players typically, and are solid in their linebacker positions. I think that's something that definitely I want to see continue to kind of build on that momentum you found in that Rutgers game. You don't necessarily need to run for 400 yards, and a lot of that is because you're breaking so many explosives. But I think if you can consistently be over 5 to 6 yards per carry in this game against a team that has been pretty solid, that's the thing they've done the best against this year defensively. I think that would definitely be an area to start for the Ducks.
Yeah, and then you start looking at the secondary, and I'm saying, hey, like, they did really completely shut down a team in Rutgers, and that's what you really want to see, because that I think is one of the units with the highest ceilings. This team, it may be one that we haven't necessarily seen yet. Like what is Brandon Finney's ceiling? What is the ability for a guy like Dylan Thieneman to yes, like he can be great over the top. We keep seeing him come down underneath in that role, the rover role. And like what is the ceiling there? Iowa's 123rd in the country in passing offense. Like just how much stock, I guess, can you put in a really solid performance from Oregon secondary here?
I think an absolute shutdown should be the expectation here, because you think about, you're coming off a game where Rutgers has been able to pass the ball pretty well on most of the teams that they've faced so far this year. I think Oregon is a particularly bad matchup for them because of the types of players they have at corner with guys like Finney and Obadegwu. But when you're coming off a game in that where Rutgers entered that, Calic Manis was a top 10 passer in the country, and you shut him down and hold him to, I think, under 80 total passing yards on the game, and less than 10 completions. Yeah, you got to be holding these Wisconsin quarterbacks. I think it's Simmons they made the move to. Hunter Simmons they made the move to recently, who's been starting for them, and they just limit these guys' passing attempts because you can tell that they don't trust what they're able to do. Wisconsin has, and they haven't run the ball necessarily that well either, which sets them up poorly. So I think you should absolutely be looking to shut them down. I think if you look, the fact that they haven't scored a touchdown in their last 2 games, you allow more than 2 scores in this game, that's absolutely a disappointment. It should be 3 points, 7 points at the most for this Wisconsin team.
Yeah, I mean, you start looking at like this is where I think the mentality that Dan Lanning starts to preach, the Ducks versus or Oregon versus Oregon mentality. It's like Oregon really isn't playing Wisconsin in this game. You almost want to say that's the mentality that they're looking at, because this is a game where Oregon's really pushing itself to get better, and you start looking at stuff like just how great can we be on the back end? Can we like be so great that we're shutting this team out for the third game in a row? I think that's really what I'm looking for here is just, confidence, and then also like top to bottom. You got to see earlier in this season the second the second and third rotations like throughout the depth chart really didn't look as strong. Against Rutgers, I thought it was really impressive. The level to which guys, in the secondary, on the defensive line, were able to come in and continue, close to that level of shutdown.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the second unit did do a really good job at the end of the game. You look at that touchdown for Rutgers, and it just came off the short field from the Moore interception. Yeah. I think the second unit did do good. And I think this, like you said, this is another good opportunity to give those guys chances. And because you've been playing, Cooper Perry's already used his red shirts. There's no reason to not let him at least, get chances to be on the field and feel like he's contributing, because it's going to contribute to his development next year and the year after that. It's every snap these guys get out there is going to do wonders for them as they get into next offseason and the next season after that.